This is Michael Coffey, and this is a Tiny Desk sermon. I'm the pastor of First English Lutheran Church in Austin, Texas. And Tiny Desk sermons are a first look at the readings for this coming Sunday and some initial thoughts on them. This coming Sunday is Lectionary 24 or Proper 19 in the year B. Our text for the Gospel reading is from the Gospel of Mark and in chapter 8, and this is the most pivotal, important moment and text in the entire Gospel of Mark. I'll say more about that. Let me read the text. Chapter 8, starting at verse 24. Verse 27. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." Tough stuff. This text is really, like I said, the pivotal moment in the Gospel of Mark. Everything before this text starts to feel like Jesus is this great man of power sent by God who will use all of his great power to cast out evil, to cast off the oppressive empire, and bring in God's kingdom and rule with power and authority. So nothing in the gospel up to this point prepares the disciples or the reader of the text to hear what Jesus just said. And that's incredibly important to know. Nothing prepares you to hear that Jesus as the Messiah, as the anointed one from God, must suffer, be rejected, suffer, be killed, and on the third day be raised. And certainly then nothing prepares anyone to hear Jesus say, "And you have a similar path to follow in my name." So this is really difficult, challenging, and important stuff. It's the turning point in the entire Gospel of Mark. Jesus makes 2 more passion predictions like this one in the following 2 chapters. Each time the disciples either outright reject it, like Peter does here, misunderstand it, or want to turn it into something for their advantage. And Jesus has to teach them over and over again that's not what it's about. So I think there's a lot for us to hear in this text for Christianity in our day. First of all, in the history of Christianity, we would much rather worship and praise Jesus for dying on the cross than follow him in the way of the cross. This text won't let us get away with that at all. And we we hear in this text an incredible challenge for what it means to live our lives today. And not just a challenge, but I think there's some good news hidden in here we might not hear at first because we're so shocked. Jesus says those who want to save their life, protect themselves in what they are right now, kind of lose their lives. And those who will lose their life for my sake and the sake of the gospel will save it or find it. And then he goes on to say, what can you give in exchange for your life? He's saying that our lives are so valuable to ourselves and to God that nothing is more valuable than our lives. So therefore, what we give our lives for should be of ultimate importance. Now, Jesus might mean literally that people will die in witness to the kingdom and in service to their neighbor and in seeking justice and being generous. People might and have died for that, like Jesus did and other great examples of the faith. But we might simply have to give up something of ourselves. We might have to lose status, wealth, privilege, in order to be the people of God, to witness to the kingdom in our world today. And so Jesus is telling us our lives are too valuable to waste on living for something less than what we were made for, created for, called for, redeemed for, which is for God's kingdom of justice and mercy for all people, including us. So the good news in this text is our lives are of incredible worth, more than we even value them ourselves. And so when we devalue ourselves, we waste our life on things of lesser worth. When we hear the value of our lives in Jesus' eyes and God's eyes, we live for what is most valuable in all creation, which is love. Love of neighbor, love that becomes justice in the realm of public life, love that is what defines us and what brings us together. So consider today how valuable your life is and how you're called to spend that great value for great worth. Peace to all.